Welcome to part 9, in our tutorial series on how to develop a Contras-like game, with free visual game engine Gdevelop. In this video, we are fine-tuning some aspects of the game to start to give it some structure and have a more in-depth control of what is happening. To achieve these objectives, we will improve the death mechanism to show a game over screen and suspend the game until we restart it. We will implement a basic start screen with some limited functionalities for now, as it will only be used to start the game when the game is fresh starting, or when the player is starting again. But first, as always, let's quickly check what we have done in the previous videos and what is the current state of the game. So the state machine that we have implemented in the last video is working correctly, and is allowing us to manage correctly and in a very simple and clean way, what is happening with the player. But when we die, everything seems to break apart, and we end up on a screen that shows a partial view of the game world. So, let's move on. The first thing to do is to implement a basic game flow, where we will start from a start screen, that for now, will only allow us to move to the game. Later on, we will implement other features like settings, credits, and an exit option. To start implementing the flow, we first need to create some new scenes, but before creating them, let's actually rename the one that we currently are using that is not correctly reflecting what it is about. For this, click on the Project Manager button, on the left button on the top bar. And then, in the Project Manager panel, under Scenes, click on the three dots after the current scene called New Scene, and select the option Rename. In our case, we are going to rename it to Game, but you can put any name you want that can be sufficiently descriptive. Click on the plus sign and create a new scene that we will be calling Start. Double-click on the start scene to open it and to start drawing a first quick version of the start screen to be used as a placeholder. Go to the start scene view and in the object panel, add a new sprite object to the game. Name it Logo. Click on the button Add Animation and then on the button Add. Select the file that you want to be used as the logo of your game. We will upload ours, but maybe you want to use your own. Click on the Add Behavior and then on the Search New Behaviors. In the search box, type sign movement and then click on the description displayed at the bottom of the window. We want the logo to have some slight movement while in the start screen, and the sign movement function will allow us to have movement in the X and Y at a certain speed. Look for it in the behaviors available to add it to the game object, and double-click on it to start editing and configuring the values. To check on the functionality, let's put the amplitude for bother X and Y to be both 100 and the speed to be 60. Let's run the game to see the results. The game logo is moving in an ellipsis. Let's go the behavior properties. Change the Y to be 50 and the speed to 30. We will check the result later on. Now let's create a quick placeholder for the Start button. So, from the Object right pane, click on the plus sign to add a new sprite object. Name it Start button. Click on Add Animation, name it Start, and then click on Edit with Piskel to create the placeholder. Save the button as start and then exit Piskel. Drag the sprite to the scene view to be below the game logo. Let's create a new sprite object and name it Studio Logo, that where you will be including your brand logo. Click the Add Animation and then click on the Add button to select from the Disca logo. If you don't have one, you can skip this, or just draw some quick draft on Piskel. Once finished, drag it to the scene view. The Contra start screen is fully black. So let's clip on the top bar on the Layers button and then on the Layer window choose the new background color, in our case black. Let's now put a thumbnail of our hero or heroes. Add a new sprite object, name it Character Hero, or any other name. Click on Add Animation, and then the button Add to upload from the disk an image associated with the player. Drag it to the scene view to be near the previous images. Let's run it. Well, we can certainly not say that it is the most beautiful start screen ever, but for now, it can serve its purpose. Let's code now the start functionality, and go to the game when clicking the start button. For this, let's go to the start events view and add a new event. Click on Add Condition. Choose the start button, and then from the search box, type mouse. Choose the option the cursor touches on an object. Click OK to close. Add a new condition. In the condition search box, type mouse and then select the option mouse pressed or touch held. And in the propriety pane, set the option button to test to be the left primary button. Click OK to close. Click Add Action. On the search box, type Change and select the Change Scene option. In the field, New Scene Name, choose the scene you want to move to. In our case, the game that we have just changed. Click OK to close the window. Let's quickly check if it is working by running the game. Yes. It runs. We can now move from the start screen to the game. Let's add now a game over. We are going to do it via a new layer that will be hidden until the player is dead. When dead, The layer will be displayed and the message associated with it shown to the player. We have already had the state for when the player is dead, we just have not yet fully used it. So, let's go to the game scene view, and if the layer manager is not active at the bottom of the screen, let's open it by click on the button layer on the top bar. Click the button and layer and name it Game Over. If it is not on the top of all the layers, then drag it to the top, to assure that it will be in the front of every layer. Let's add now, the Game Over text. Create a new text object and name it Game Over. Set the font size and color to what will fit on your case. In our case, at this stage, we are going to try a size of 200 pixels and a red color. For the text, we will use Game Over. Later on, we will be able to adjust the fonts. Click Apply to close. Drag the object to the screen and make sure that the object is on the Game Over layer. Place it in the center of the screen. Since it is a new layer, it will have its own camera that is not affected by any scrolling, so it will always appear in the same place. If needed, you may adjust it automatically to the scene size. Add a new text object that we will be using to add a sentence to tell the player to press the fire button to restart. Name it Press Fire. Follow the same earlier steps, and for the message, type Press Fire to restart. Click Apply to close and drag the object to the screen. Set the layer to Game Over. Let's implement now the logic behind the Game Over message. Go to the game event view and look for the player damage link. Click on the button to open it. Since we have added and changed the scenes names, it will ask us again to link the external event to one of the scenes. Choose Game and continue forward. In the damage state, look for the event where we are killing the player. Add a new action associated with physic player. In the search box, type variable and select from the option list, modify the text of a variable of an object. In the propriety pane, set the state variable to the state dead. Add a new action. In the search box, type layer, and then select the option Show Layer. In the layer name, choose the Game Over. Click OK to close. Let's go back to the game event view, and now click on the button to open the player dead event sheet. Link the event to the game scene and move forward to the dead event view. In the previous video, we didn't make any changes to this state, so we will have to create a new event. For the condition, let's check if the fire key is pressed. And for the action, choose the Change Scene option, and then in the new scene set it to Start. Add a new action. In the search box, type Hide Layer and in the layer name select the Game Over. Before testing, let's check if we are hiding the layer Game Over. So, let's go to the game scene view, and check if the layer is set to Not Visible. indicated by the small the eye-like icon being disabled and in a gray color. If enabled, with the color blue, click on it to disable it. The color will change from blue to gray. Go to the start scene and run the game to check it from the beginning. So, we can go to the game. Let's receive some damage until dead. And the game over message is displayed but somewhat of the place. Also, the camera is again moving to a strange position, losing the focus of the game. If we press the fire button, we are not restarting. So, let's go back to the events, and specifically to the player dead. After the last action, add a new action associated with physic player. Choose the variable object, and then the variable state. For the modify sign set to and then in the value, let's type in init. This will tell the machine state that when resetting the game we want to go back to the init state and restart everything associated with the player. Since we are deleting the player when dead in the init state, we need to make sure that it is correctly spawned back. For that, let's copy from the player damage, the set of events that deletes player and gun. Go to the player init state, and paste them the actions after the action where we ignore the default controls. Replace the delete action with a create object. Since the function requires us to provide some coordinates, let's for now use the physic player coordinates, but we will replace it later on, with the respawn point coordinates. Remember to set the layer to game. Now, we need to remove the current instance of the player in the game scene view, as we need the game to spawn correctly the player on start. So, delete from the scene, the player sprite, physic player, and gun. To have the player starting at the correct point in the game, we need to provide a spawn point. So, create a new sprite object and name it spawn player. Add an animation, and then click on the edit with Piskel to create a quick image to be used as a reference of the point while in design view. In our case, we are going to use a blue cross. Rename it to spawn player and save. Close Piskel and go back to the scene view. Drag the new object to the scene view where you want the player to be spawned. Also, we can see that we are heavily dependent on checking the player variable state, which is associated with the object physic player. This means that we don't think we can delete this object when the player is dead, but only the player and gun sprites. So, let's bring back the physic player to the game. And let's set its height back to 185 as to be able to collide with the enemy bullets. Go to the player init and replace the physic player coordinates with the new spawn player ones. Go to the game event view, and at the top of the event, associated with the beginning of the scene, let's set the position of the player to the spawn player positions. In reality, the right place to do it should have been the state player init, but for now, we can leave it here and move it later to the correct place. So, let's go to the player init state and delete the action where we were creating a new physic player. Let's go to the player damage state, and delete the action that would delete the physic player. Let's run the game to see if it is working. Okay, it is more or less working. Although when dead the sprite of the player is not disappearing, we will have to look into it, but first let's adjust some visual glitches. The first one, the game logo on the start screen is moving too much. Let's reduce the amplitude of the movement in the object sign movement behavior. Let's also make sure that independently of the screen resolution, all the elements in the start screen will be on the middle of the screen on the horizontal axis. So, in the start events, add a new event with on scene beginning. And for each of the objects, set the position X to the scene window width divided by 2. Let's replace the image of the character hero with something a little bit more in line with the CONTRA example. The image will be uploaded to the itch.io. Let's adjust now the size and position of the game over screen texts, to make sure that they are fitting better the screen. Go to the game events and on the top of the event, on the event on beginning of the scene, add some actions to hide some of the control objects that we have created, like the spawn player, the enemy turn control points. Let's fix the beginning of the game, where you can see the layer background, by moving the objects to the right to make sure that we are starting with everything filled. Let's create also a new sprite object named world limit with a red fill, and set with the platform behavior. Increase its height and use it to block the player from going out of the boundaries of the level if starting to move to the left. Be sure to hide it too at the start of the game as we have just done for the other objects. In the game events, at the beginning of the scene hide the object. Let's check if everything is working correctly. Well, all the control objects are hidden. Let's find some enemies. They are firing and we disappear when dead. We have several glitches, but we will be closing them as we move forward. In the next episode, we will take care of the background of the game, and we will try to find some tile sets that will implement something cooler for the background. We hope that you have liked this video. If it has been the case, consider subscribing, giving a like, and clicking on the notification button. If you have any questions, problems, or comments, don't hesitate in putting a comment and we will answer as fast as we could. See you in the next video, game developers.